I suppose I should start by introducing myself. My name's Jake, and I'm just a regular guy who thought he had a perfect marriage. I had that classic American dream, a nice house in a suburban neighborhood, a steady job as an IT consultant, and a beautiful wife named Lisa. We had been married for about 6 years, and for the most part, I believed we were doing well. Lisa had this knack for making everything seem perfect. She was that kind of woman who could organize a dinner party, make you feel like a king, and smile sweetly while whipping up an incredible meal. She was charming, attractive, and seemed dedicated to our relationship. But over the past few months, things changed. Little things at first that I brushed off as life stresses. I noticed that Lisa was coming home later than usual from her yoga classes. The way she would snap at me over small things felt different, more intense. One night, she even forgot my birthday. I tried to chalk it all up to work and life getting in the way, but something inside me started to whisper that something wasn't right. One Friday evening, I was working. Late in my office. The glow from my computer screen illuminated the shadows in the room, and I found myself scrolling through my phone mindlessly. Out of habit, I opened our shared Google Calendar to see if Lisa had planned anything for the weekend. That's when I saw it, a block labeled Yoga Retreat Weekend of April 14. It struck me as odd because Lisa had never mentioned anything about a retreat. I clicked on it to get more information, thinking it was a class or something new she wanted to try. But there it was, in bold letters, Weekend Getaway with Mark. The name hit me like a punch to the gut. Mark was a guy from her yoga class, someone she talked about casually, always saying how inspiring and fit he was. I had never met him, but I had this gnawing feeling that he was more than just a workout buddy. I thought I was being paranoid, but when I saw that calendar entry, the truth struck like a lightning bolt. I felt nauseous. Weekend getaway, with Mark. My heart raced as I tried to process the implications. I needed to know more, and I couldn't just confront her without any proof. So I decided to do some digging. I remember texting her to see how her yoga class was going, and she replied sweetly, saying it was great, with no mention of any weekend plans. My gut twisted, it felt like a lie. Over the next few days, I kept my composure and watched her closely. I began to notice more signs. The way she was on her phone more often, how she'd get all dressed up just to go to a yoga class, and the lingering scent of cologne that wasn't hers when she got home. My thoughts spiraled into a dark place as I imagined her with Mark, living out fantasies while I was none the wiser. Each little sign compounded my anger, turning into a raging fire of emotions. Finally, 3 days before the supposed getaway, I decided to confront her. I'd had enough of the sneaking around. I was shaking with nerves as I prepared to talk to Lisa, trying to gather my thoughts. I imagined her being honest, apologizing, but deep down, I feared the truth. When she walked through the door that evening, I sat her down at the dining room table. The air felt thick between us. I looked her in the eyes, searching for any sign of guilt. Lisa, I said, trying to keep my voice steady, I saw the calendar entry for a yoga retreat, the one with Mark. What's going on? Her reaction was instantaneous. Her expression shifted from surprise to something more defensive. Jake, it's not what you think, she exclaimed, eyes wide in horror as she tried to dismiss it. Mark's just a friend. We're not doing anything wrong. It's a group thing, I swear. I felt the blood rush to my face. How could she lie so easily? My heart sank as I heard the words tumble from her mouth. She was still denying it, and this was just the beginning of her excuses. I knew I needed to gather more evidence before I could confront her properly. But I couldn't help wondering how I had ended up here in this mess of deceit. The woman I loved, who I thought I knew inside and out, was lying straight to my face. How could I deal with this betrayal? The emotional impact hit me hard. Rage, sadness, and betrayal collided in a storm inside me. I felt the ground shifting beneath my feet as I tried to keep my composure. And so, I stewed in my anger and confusion, trying to hold it all together while plotting my next move. It was time to think about how to handle this tidal wave of betrayal and what it meant for my future. Little did I know that my journey into revenge would change everything. After that confrontation, I felt like I was living in a surreal nightmare. While Lisa's words echoed in my mind, reality started to sink in. I couldn't just sit idly by while she played me for a fool. I needed to turn my emotional chaos into something actionable. I wanted to gather undeniable proof before I made my next move. The next few days were a blur. I went to work and tried to focus, but I found my mind wandering back to Lisa and Mark. I began silently observing Lisa more closely. I noticed her little quirks, the way she'd flip her hair when she was talking to someone on the phone, the way her smile seemed to have a hint of mischief when she thought. I wasn't looking. The moments of happiness I once cherished started to feel like a far-off memory, replaced by haunting images of betrayal. One evening, while Lisa was getting ready for yet another yoga class, I made an early escape to the garage. I rummaged through old boxes until I found my trusty old DSLR camera. I dusted it off and decided to use it for a purpose I never thought I'd have to. My heart raced as I hid it in my car and waited for her to leave. The plan was simple. I would follow her and find out what was really going on. As she pulled out of the driveway, I took a deep breath and slid into my own car. The drive was nerve-wracking. My heart pounded in my chest, and it felt like I was a detective on a case that I never wanted to be part of. I followed her across town, my mind racing with possibilities. Where was she going? Would I finally get the answers I needed? After about 20 minutes, Lisa parked at a trendy spot downtown, the kind of place where hip couples grabbed cocktails and shared small plates. I felt a wave of dread wash over me as I parked a little further down the street. I grabbed the camera and waited, trying to calm my breathing. After a few minutes, Lisa walked inside, and I felt this sickening knot form in my stomach. I waited for what felt like an eternity, but I knew I had to capture this moment. I climbed out of my car and approached the restaurant cautiously. Through the glass windows, I could see her laughing, her back turned to me as she chatted animatedly with someone. My heart dropped as I realized that someone was Mark. I snapped pictures as discreetly as possible, feeling a mix of adrenaline and despair. The way they leaned in close, the soft laughter, it all felt wrong. I could see the way she tossed her hair back, that same charming smile she used on me, now directed at him. It was all too much. I felt sick watching the woman who claimed to love me throw herself into the arms of another man. After what felt like too long, I decided I'd gathered enough evidence. I slipped back to my car and headed home, the camera resting heavily on lap. As I drove, a whirlwind of emotions crashed over me: anger, sadness, betrayal, and an insatiable desire for revenge. Once I was home, I quickly transferred the images to my laptop. I sat there, staring at the screen, heart racing as I saw Lisa and Mark laughing together. I couldn't believe she had the audacity to betray me so brazenly while pretending to be the perfect wife. Hours passed, and I meticulously organized the photos, knowing I'd need them for the confrontation I was planning. When Lisa came home later that evening, she had no idea I was about to flip our lives upside down. She walked in cheerfully, her yoga bag slung over her shoulder, and greeted me with a peck on the cheek. I forced a smile, but inside I was steeling myself for the moment of truth. "Hey, how was class?" I asked, trying to keep my tone casual. "It was great. We did some new poses and I really pushed myself," she replied, her eyes shining. "That's awesome," I said, masking the resentment that churned beneath the surface. "You know, I was thinking about you today." Her smile faltered for a second, but she recovered quickly. "Oh, what about?" I took a deep breath, knowing that the moment was finally here. "I was wondering how much you enjoy spending time with Mark." Her expression shifted instantly, and I could see her trying to gauge if I knew anything specific. "What do you mean?" I stood up, my heart racing as I grabbed the laptop and turned it toward her. "I mean this. Care to explain what you were doing with him?" The look on her face was priceless. Shock, panic, and denial washed over her features. "Jake, I can explain. These pictures aren't what they look like. You have to trust me." "Trust you? You've been lying to me for months. How can I trust someone who doesn't even bother to be honest?" Lisa stammered, trying to form a coherent explanation, but her words fell flat. She failed to provide any justification that could redeem her actions, and I felt a sense of clarity wash over me. I wasn't going to be the fool any longer. As she floundered through her excuses, I felt a cold determination wrap around my heart. I had enough evidence to end this charade. The emotional impact of this moment marked a turning point, a shift from shock to resolution. I was done playing along with her facade of the perfect life while she betrayed me. My mind started to race with thoughts of revenge. I wouldn't just confront her. I needed to make sure she understood the consequences of her actions. It was time we both faced the reality of what our marriage had become. I wasn't simply going to walk away. I was going to make her feel the weight of her betrayal. The confrontation had unraveled everything, and I felt a strange mix of satisfaction and anger. Lisa sat across from me, her face pale, eyes darting as she struggled to find the right words to convince me of her innocence. But as I watched her, I realized there was no way back from this. The trust was shattered. "Jake, please, you have to believe me," she pleaded, her voice trembling as she leaned forward, desperate. "Mark and I were just talking. I swear there's nothing going on between us." I couldn't help but scoff at her words. "You expect me to believe that after seeing you two together, you were practically wrapped up in each other. How long has this been going on, Lisa? How many times have you lied to me?" My voice grew louder with each question, fueled by the flood of emotions that cascaded through me. "Just a few weeks," she finally admitted, her voice breaking. "I didn't mean for it to happen. We just connected and I was confused. I thought I could handle it. I didn't want to hurt you." Each word felt like a dagger as she spoke. Confused, hurt. She had no idea what those words meant. I had dedicated myself to her, to our marriage, and here she was, throwing it all away over some flirty yoga instructor. It felt like she was minimizing everything we had built together. I could feel the anger boiling beneath my skin. "It's too late for apologies now," I spat back. "You've been living a double life while I've been here, trusting you completely. You didn't just cheat on me, you cheated on our love." I could see the realization flicker in her eyes, but it was too late for remorse. As she stumbled through more excuses, trying to explain her actions, all I could think about was how I had been a complete fool, blinded by my love for her. I had to shift gears. This wasn't just about confronting her. It was about making her truly understand the consequences of her actions. "Here's the deal," I said, my voice low and steady as I leaned in closer, locking eyes with her. "I'm not going to play the victim here. We're going to do this my way. I want you to tell Mark it's over. No more contact. I want you to understand how it feels to lose something you took for granted." Lisa opened her mouth to argue, but I raised a hand to stop her. "This isn't up for discussion. You put yourself in this mess. Now it's time to face reality." "What do you mean?" she asked, confusion etched across her face. "I'm going to find a way to make sure you feel the pain you've inflicted on me. You wanted the thrill of something new. Well, now you'll have to live with the consequences. I'm giving you a week to end things with him and prove that you're serious about this marriage, but you also need to know that I'm not going to forget. I will remind you of this every single day until you understand how wrong you were." Her eyes widened, shock replacing the defiance I had expected. "You're serious?" "Dead serious," I replied. "I'll give you the chance to make things right, but know that I will be watching. Every move you make, every text you send. You'll have to prove yourself if you truly want to save this marriage." What I said felt like a weight lifting off my shoulders. I had taken control, something I hadn't felt for so long. Lisa sat there, pulse racing, and I could tell she was beginning to grasp the gravity of the situation. Over the next few days, I watched her closely, observing every interaction she had. I could see the tension in her shoulders as she tried to maintain her composure, all while I silently evaluated her every move. I was determined to catch any signs of deceit. I had set my mind on executing my plan without faltering. Lisa's phone calls became a point of tension. Each time she received a notification, I felt my heart skip a beat. I would casually ask her who it was, and she would respond with vague answers, just a friend or nothing important. But the trust was gone, and so I couldn't help but feel that she was still hiding something. One afternoon, while she was in the shower, I decided to take a leap of faith. I grabbed her phone from the kitchen counter, heart racing as I unlocked it with her passcode, a code I had memorized long ago. What I found was a mix of fear and validation. I scrolled through her messages, my blood boiling as I read flirty exchanges between her and Mark. They talked about meeting up, sharing intimate moments, and how much fun they had together. I clicked on a photo she had sent him, her smiling face, perfectly made up, looking far too happy. It was a stark contrast to the woman who had been sitting in front of me, crying just a few days prior. I felt like I had been slapped in the face. I didn't want to believe it, but I had to confront her with this new evidence. I had hoped that she would follow through on her promise to cut ties, but it was clear she was still playing both sides. When Lisa emerged from the shower, I was waiting for her, phone in hand and a scowl on my face. "Care to explain this?" I asked, my jaw clenched as I waved the phone in the air. Her face dropped as she realized what I had seen. "Jake, please, I was going to end it, I swear." "End it? With messages like this? You think I'm going to believe that?" The confrontation erupted again, but this time it felt different. It was raw, fueled by genuine anger and betrayal. I knew that my plan for revenge was solidifying with each new discovery. She had pushed me too far, and now I would make sure that she understood the immense cost of her actions. As the days progressed, I found myself at a crossroads. I had the power now, but it was more about how much I wanted to make her suffer. And somehow, that thrill began to seep into my mind, whispering that perhaps revenge could be sweeter than I had initially thought. I would make her regret every moment she spent with Mark, and I would do it all in a way that made her question everything about our relationship. I was ready for the next phase of my plan. The tension in our house reached a fever pitch. Each day felt like a high-stakes chess game, where every move I made was calculated, and every word I spoke was laced with an undercurrent of betrayal. Lisa was on edge, trying to figure out my mood while I continued to act as if everything was somewhat normal. The facade was crumbling, but I was determined to keep it up for a little longer as part of my plan. I decided to take advantage of her anxiety. I began to subtly drop hints that I was considering taking a weekend trip somewhere, perhaps a guy's weekend. I knew it would rattle her. She was already worried about losing me, and the fear of me being away might push her to act. I casually mentioned this idea to her over dinner one night, watching her expression closely. "Oh, that sounds fun," she replied, though her voice was shaky. "Where were you thinking of going?" "Not sure yet, maybe. Hit up the mountains or something. I could use some time to think," I said, adding a nonchalant shrug for effect. For the next few days I could see how my words had impacted her. She was restless, constantly checking her phone and becoming more accommodating, trying to please me. It was almost entertaining to watch the perfect wife act extra sweet and attentive, like she was trying to win back my affection. The irony wasn't lost on me. She was playing her own game while pretending to be innocent. As days passed, I began to implement the next part of my revenge plan. I decided to create a new account on social media, one she wouldn't recognize, where I could gather information about her and Mark. I spent hours researching, crafting a persona that would allow me to explore their world without raising suspicion. It felt exhilarating. I was stepping into the role of a shadowy figure, pulling strings from behind the curtain. I used this new account to follow Lisa and Mark's interactions online, and soon I stumbled upon something that made my blood run cold. They had a secret rendezvous planned, a weekend trip to a nearby beach. The date, coincidentally, the same weekend I had mentioned to Lisa about my potential guys trip. I couldn't believe my luck. This was the golden opportunity I had been waiting for. I felt a rush of adrenaline as I formulated my plan. Instead of confronting her immediately, I decided to take a more sinister approach. I would let her go on this trip believing she had gotten away with everything, and then I would be waiting for her when she returned, armed with undeniable proof of her infidelity. The night before her trip, Lisa was buzzing with excitement, telling me how she had planned everything with her friends. "It's going to be so much fun, just a break from everything," she said cheerfully, completely oblivious to the fact that I was fully aware of her plans with Mark. I played my part, feigning enthusiasm. "Sounds great. I hope you enjoy yourself," I replied, forcing a smile. Inside, my heart raced at the thought of what was about to unfold. When the morning came, I watched as she packed her bags, excitement radiating off her. I felt a strange sense of empowerment, realizing that she thought she was escaping her reality. As she left for the beach, I couldn't help but feel a twinge of exhilaration. The house was a different kind of quiet once she was gone. I took the opportunity to gather all my evidence, photos, messages, and anything else I had collected. I meticulously organized them, preparing for the moment when I would reveal everything. My thoughts swirled around the potential fallout of this confrontation. Would she finally see the damage she had done? Would she realize the severity of her actions? I spent the day in a slightly manic state, checking my phone often, waiting for any sign of her updates from the beach. A few hours later, as the sun began to set, I noticed a new notification from my social media account. Lisa had posted a photo, her and Mark arms around each other, grinning widely, the backdrop of the beach behind them. The caption read, "Best weekend ever with my favorite people." The world around me dimmed in that moment. I felt a swelling rage, a cruel vindication that confirmed everything I had suspected. I clicked on the photo, zooming in on their smiling faces, and the reality of what she had done sank in deeper than ever. I had let her think she could play me for a fool, and now she was rubbing it in my face. The fire inside me burned hotter. I had the evidence. I had the power. Nothing was going to stop me from executing my plan. The following day, I decided to do something I had only fantasized about. I would show up unannounced at the beach. I needed to confront her in front of Mark, to rip the illusion of their perfect weekend apart in one fell swoop. It would be a moment of reckoning. I quickly packed a bag for myself, not wanting to make a spectacle of my arrival. I drove to the beach, my heart racing with anticipation. The sun was setting, painting the sky in hues of pink and orange, but all I felt was darkness. When I arrived, I scoped out the beach area, searching for Lisa and Mark. It didn't take long to find them. They were lounging on a picnic blanket, laughing and sharing a bottle of wine. I felt a mix of anger and satisfaction as I approached, ready to confront them both. As I got closer, I could hear their laughter, the way Lisa leaned into Mark, her carefree spirit on full display. It was infuriating. I took a deep breath and stepped into their world, interrupting their blissful bubble. "Hey there, lovebirds," I said, my voice calm but laced with venom. Both of their heads snapped toward me, the look on Lisa's face morphing from surprise to horror. Mark's expression shifted to confusion, and I could see the moment he recognized me. "Jake." Lisa stammered, trying to regain her composure, but I could see the panic in her eyes. "Surprise, thought I'd join you for the weekend." I took a step closer, standing over them. "Mind if I take a seat?" The look on Lisa's face was priceless. She was frozen, caught between the thrill of her deception and the reality of being exposed. Mark looked uncertain, glancing between the two of us as if trying to gauge the situation. Jake, this isn't what it looks like." Lisa began, her voice shaky, but I cut her off. "Really? Because it looks like you're having the time of your life with my wife while I'm at home trusting you." "Both." I pulled out my phone and presented the evidence, the messages, the photos, everything I had meticulously gathered. "Now, why don't you both explain to me what this is?" The air thickened with tension as I laid everything bare. Lisa's world was collapsing around her, and I felt a sense of satisfaction wash over me. This was the moment I had been waiting for, and it was finally here. The truth was out, and I was ready to see her realize the consequences of her actions. The shock in Lisa's eyes was palpable as she took in the evidence of her betrayal laid out before her. I watched as the color drained from her face, her mouth opening and closing as she struggled to find words. Mark, on the other hand, seemed to shift uncomfortably, caught in the crossfire of our confrontation. "Jake, please, it's not what you think." Lisa started, her voice rising in pitch. "We were just having fun. It didn't mean anything." "Fun?" I echoed, incredulous. "You call this fun? You've been lying to me for months while I've been at home, working my ass off and trusting you completely. And this is how you repay me." Mark finally found his voice, but it was shaky. "Look, man, I didn't know she was married. I thought it was just a casual thing." He glanced nervously between me and Lisa, clearly unsure of how to navigate the situation. "Save it," I snapped, shooting him a glare that silenced him instantly. My focus returned to Lisa, who was now visibly trembling. "Jake, I can explain everything," she pleaded, desperation creeping into her voice. "I thought I could handle it. I didn't want to hurt you, but I just got caught up in the moment. It was a mistake." A mistake, is that all you've got? I barked, feeling the adrenaline surge through me. You think a mistake justifies what you've done. You've shattered our marriage for some cheap thrills and now you're trying to save face. In that moment, I felt like I was wielding all the power. Lisa was no longer the perfect wife. She was just a woman caught in her own web of lies, and I was the one holding the scissors. I took a step closer to her, watching as her resolve crumbled. Do you have any idea how much you've hurt me? I continued, my voice steady but laced with a simmering anger. You think you can just waltz into my life, smile, and pretend everything is fine while you deceive me. You've destroyed everything we built. And for what? A weekend fling. Tears began to stream down her face, and for a brief moment I felt a flicker of sympathy. But then I remembered the laughter I had seen between her and Mark, the way she had chosen him over our life together, and the sympathy evaporated. Don't cry now, Lisa. This is the reality you created. You wanted to play with fire, and now you've burned the whole house down. Mark, realizing he was in over his head, started to back away. I think I should go, he muttered, glancing at Lisa as if he expected her to follow. But she shook her head, tears and makeup running down her cheeks, her facade completely shattered. No, Mark, stay, Lisa commanded weakly, but it was clear that her words had lost their power. He hesitated but eventually turned and walked away, leaving her alone to face me and the consequences of her actions. As soon as he was out of earshot, Lisa broke down completely. I'm so sorry, Jake. I was stupid. I never wanted to hurt you. Please just give me a chance to make it right. Her pleas felt like a knife twisting deeper into my heart. I wanted to feel pity for her, to embrace her and tell her everything would be okay, but I couldn't shake the anger that boiled beneath the surface. Make it right, I scoffed. How do you plan to do that? By pretending it never happened. By going back to the way things were. You can't erase the past, Lisa. You've shown me who you really are, and now I have to decide how to move forward. The silence that followed was heavy. I could see Lisa searching for some shred of hope in my eyes, but I was done playing the dutiful husband. I had witnessed the betrayal firsthand, and it was time for her to understand the gravity of her choices. I want you to know that I will not be the fool in this situation anymore, I said, my voice firm. You have a choice to make right now. You can either go back to Mark and live with the reality that you've lost everything you had with me, or you can fight to regain my trust, knowing it will take hard work and honesty. She looked up at me, her expression a mix of desperation and determination. I want to make this work. I'll do anything, I promise. Do you mean that? I asked, my heart racing at the prospect of reconciliation. Because I need to see you make changes. I can't go back to how things were. If you want to save our marriage, I need evidence of your commitment. No more lies, no more secrets. Okay, she whispered, wiping her tears. I'll do better. I'll cut off all contact with Mark. I'll prove it to you. I nodded, but deep down I knew it wouldn't be easy for either of us. Trust was a fragile thing, easily shattered and difficult to rebuild. I felt a mix of relief and fear. The road ahead would be rocky and uncertain. As I left the beach that day, I knew this was only the beginning of a long journey. The reality of our relationship had shifted, and I was determined not to let her forget the mistakes she had made. I had played the perfect fool for long enough, and now it was time for her to understand the cost of her betrayal. The power had shifted, and with it came the responsibility of rebuilding, not just our marriage, but the pieces of my heart that had been broken in the process. What would the next chapter of our lives look like? I wasn't sure, but one thing was for certain. I would hold her accountable every step of the way. I was done being the passive partner. Now it was time for her to face the music. As painful as these moments had been, I felt a newfound strength emerging within me, a resolve to ensure that I would never be caught off guard again. The days following that fateful weekend were some of the most challenging of my life. Lisa was determined to prove her commitment to our marriage, but the journey ahead was fraught with obstacles. I knew I had to be vigilant. Trust, once broken, doesn't just heal on its own. It requires effort, transparency, and sometimes a little bit of time. Lisa did cut off contact with Mark as promised. I monitored her phone activities, checking messages whenever I could, and she was surprisingly cooperative. She even offered me her phone to look through whenever I asked, trying to reassure me of her sincerity. But while I appreciated her effort, the nagging doubt still lingered in my mind. I couldn't shake the feeling that the rug could be pulled out from under me again at any moment. The first few weeks were tense. Lisa often sought my forgiveness, expressing regret in ways that felt both genuine and calculated. I could see her struggling to balance her guilt with her desire to make things right. Each time she voiced her remorse, I felt a mix of emotions: anger, sadness, and a hint of hope for our future. I wanted to believe in the possibility of redemption, but I also wanted her to feel the weight of her actions. As the days turned into weeks, I began to notice subtle changes in her behavior. Lisa became more attentive, more engaged in our conversations, and she started taking a genuine interest in activities we once enjoyed together. We went out for dinner, took long walks, and even attempted to recreate some of our favorite date nights. It was refreshing to see her making an effort, but I remained cautious, allowing myself to be hopeful but not naive. I started to open up about my feelings: the anger, the betrayal, the fear of being hurt again. I found that talking about it helped alleviate some of the weight I had been carrying. Lisa listened, her eyes welling up with tears as I laid bare the emotional turmoil I had been through. It was cathartic for both of us, creating a space for honesty that hadn't existed before. But still, there were moments when I would catch her off guard. A phone call she received, a notification that she quickly dismissed. Each time I felt a wave of anxiety, the old scars stinging anew. I began to realize that while she was trying to rebuild our relationship, I was also grappling with my own healing. I sought advice from friends, some of whom urged me to walk away completely. "You deserve better than this," they said, echoing sentiments that resonated with my wounded heart. But I could shake the love I still had for Lisa, nor could I ignore the potential for growth that lay between us. I had to make a choice, either to forgive her and work together to rebuild, or to sever ties and find closure. One evening, as we sat on the couch, I turned to Lisa, seeing the determination etched on her face. "I need you to know that I'm still struggling with this," I said, my voice steady but vulnerable. "I want to believe you, I really do, but it's going to take time." "I understand," she replied, her voice earnest. "I'll do whatever it takes, Jake. I'll keep showing you that I'm committed to us. I can't change the past, but I want to make a better future." In that moment, I saw a glimmer of the woman I had fallen in love with. The sincerity in her eyes gave me a flicker of hope that perhaps we could navigate this maze of hurt together. It wouldn't be easy, and I knew there would be days filled with doubt and fear, but the effort she was putting forth inspired me. As weeks turned into months, I began to feel the weight of the betrayal slowly lifting. Lisa's consistent efforts to rebuild my trust began to chip away at the walls I had constructed around my heart. We attended couples therapy, where we explored our feelings, communication styles, and ways to strengthen our relationship. It was challenging but necessary work that forced us to confront the reality of our situation. Every session brought us closer, allowing us to express our fears and hopes in a safe environment. I realized that my journey was not just about forgiveness. It was about rediscovering what had brought us together in the first place. One day, during a therapy session, I looked at Lisa and saw the woman I once loved, not the one who had betrayed me, but the one who was willing to fight for our marriage. It was a profound realization that shifted my perspective. I was no longer simply a victim of her infidelity. I was a partner in rebuilding something new, something stronger. The road ahead was still uncertain, but I felt empowered. I learned that love can withstand even the deepest scars if both partners are willing to put in the work. I no longer felt like a fool, I felt like a survivor. As I reflect on the entire experience, I realize that I have grown in ways I never expected. I've learned to trust my instincts, to communicate openly about my feelings, and to recognize that vulnerability can be a source of strength. For anyone who finds themselves in a similar situation, I urge you to assess your relationship honestly. Understand that forgiveness takes time, and rebuilding trust is a joint effort. If you choose to stay, ensure you both are committed to working through the pain together. And if the trust can't be rebuilt, know that it's okay to walk away. In the end, I chose to fight for my marriage. Lisa and I are on a long journey of healing, but it's one we're taking together. Each day brings new challenges, but with each challenge, we grow stronger. The scars of betrayal may never fully fade, but they can serve as a reminder of how far we've come and the resilience of love when faced with adversity.